Got it.
Okay, this recording is not the property of the county, and the county makes no representation about accuracy of the recording and is not responsible for the content. The recording is the exclusive property of the union or the recorder, and copies of the recording must be directly requested from the recorder. The county has no obligation under FS 119, and it is not the county's recording, nor does the county maintain a copy. Okay.
Okay.
Karen, I'm here. This is Sarah, but for some reason I don't have a picture, but I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Scott.
Yes. Just getting things set up here. Okay. Think we got everything squared away. If I find a typo, forgive me. We'll correct it later. I think the last of the proposals or economic proposals that we have are the wages, which we will present right now. What we've done, and I will send these over, Karen, when we finish talking. And let me just walk you through them.
Do you want to put them up on the screen?
Yeah, if you could enable the host sharing.
Hey, Scott, you should be able to do it now.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Everybody see that all right?
Yes.
Yep.
Let me see. Okay. So something that we have proposed a couple of times in the past, and I think I forewarned everybody that it'd be coming this time again. And I think the time makes perfect sense for it, is getting away from the current way that raises are done and wages are calculated. As we all know, we're up against two driving forces at the moment. The first one being minimum wage is going up. It's going up to $15. That will take place or finish taking place on September of 2026, which is going to drive up the starting wages. So we want to be cognizant of that as we move forward and not just have it being reactive to the statutory increase and end up with a whole segment of our people at minimum wage. We want to avoid that. And then secondly, and probably more importantly, is supply and demand. We have plenty of locals down in that area, and then there are non-union shops, other unions. There's a good mix of things along that whole section of Florida. And paramedics are very difficult to come by. EMTs are continuing to get difficult to come by, and companies are reacting. And we've had some pretty significant market adjustments by a number of companies surrounding Manatee to make sure that they maintain their staffing levels or try to claw back from some deficits. So With that in mind, we took the existing wages, did a market adjustment, and made them into a step scale that I think is fair and equitable for everybody. I'll show you the step scale in a second. I think that kind of becomes irrelevant, but we would look for an October one of, and I see an error already there. That should be 2021, Karen. I'll change it before I send it to you. So 2021, we need to move people from their current rates of pay onto the pay scale. The easiest way to do that is to simply take their current rate of pay, move them onto the step scale, but ensure that that movement creates at least a 3% increase to their current hourly wage. That way, we don't have people that are being redlined and sitting for a couple of years without any increase. It's fair to everybody in that sense. It's probably the most cost-effective way than trying to move people onto the scale based on years of service, because that creates its own set of challenges with people that have come and gone, people that have been given credit, people that just through the process over the years certainly aren't where they should be. Clint is the perfect example of that. If we went by years of service, he'd go to step 10 on the scale and be at top pay right as we moved, versus based on this, he would start at, I think, step 4, Clint, or 5 or 3 even. Do you remember?
Somewhere around 4 or 5, right in the
Yeah.
middle.
Okay. So again, it's the fair and equitable way, I think, to place people on the scale. Moving down, there was language here about the general wage increases, and we'd be privy to that. That didn't change. Movement on the scale. So if we did the October of 21, then October of 22, we would move to the next step. And again, we can adjust that when we talk about length of the contract. The intent would be each October, the first full pay period, you'd move up a step on the scale. People that have reached the top scale, and I think in doing it, putting people on the scale as we proposed, I believe through the life of the contract, if it was a 3-year, one person would reach maximum step. So it's one anomaly, and I'm not sure the story behind it, but they're up there. So that person or anybody reaching top step would receive a 3% lump sum payout in lieu of an increase. And they would get that in the period where you were supposed to have a step movement. Premium pay for specially charged medic, that's it reflects it in the scale, the 5%, so that doesn't change. Starting wages. There was a formula in here up to 5% for 5 years, 10% for 10, and then 15% for 11 or more. I think kind of proof of that doesn't really work is you recently had a hiring event for the county-wide. I think in the literature put out, it was made clear that we don't pay the starting rate, so we can increase that to whatever, right, wrong, or indifferent. I know you need people through the door. Giving them credit where they don't necessarily deserve credit, I think, is a slap in the face to our employees who have put the time in here. And then with a wink and a nod, we're giving someone else 15% for 2 years experience. But I think the fair and equitable way to do that is to, with the increased and more competitive wages, if somebody has some experience, we're happy to bring them in on step 2 of the scale. Otherwise, it starts step 1. So if they've got some experience somewhere else, great. They're still going to need to come in. They're still going to need to learn the county. They're still going to have to be FTO'd and everything else. So we think that if they've got that experience working with patients, they should get something for it. But if we put them at steps 2, regardless of whatever experience they have, we still think it's going to be competitive, and recruitment should be a lot easier than it has been.
But let me just ask you something. So if somebody had 15 years of experience, you're saying it's fair and equitable to bring them in at a step 2?
I do,
Okay,
because,
just want to make that clear.
yeah, because what we have now are people like Clint that have been here in the same position for over 10 years, and we've got people with 5 years in making more money than him. And that isn't right.
We have people that work here with 15 years of experience that don't get paid as much as someone who walks in the door with that same amount of experience.
Correct. Because we don't track experience once you're hired, Karen. It just kind of falls by the wayside. You got your time with the county, and it applies towards your retirement and stuff like that. But
I understand that, but my point is that you'll be ignoring that in the future, that somebody who has significant experience could only come in at a level 2. And that's fine. I just wanted to clarify that for everybody.
Yeah.
Step 2 is more than what they would make right now if they got hired at 15% above start.
Yeah. Again, when the wages in itself become competitive, then that becomes less of a factor, is what we feel. So we went through and tried to address some other things here just to make sure that it was clear. So movement between classifications, again, we want to promote people to have a career ladder, moving up from EMT to paramedic to charge paramedic and whatnot. So we think the easiest thing to do, and in the first couple of years of like an EMT or a paramedic, upgrading to a charge medic would be a raise. It's not an issue. Where it becomes an issue is people that are EMTs for 5-6 years. It starts to create a disincentive to become a medic, because it doesn't technically, and I can show you on the scale, they'd be taking a pay cut. So obviously we don't want to do that. So what we've done is just like we put the people onto the scale at the beginning of the contract, here you would move up to your proper classification, and you would go on at a step that represented a minimum of 5% increase. So it guarantees that someone, regardless of where they sit on the scale, if you're an EMT and upgrade to medic, you're at a minimum taking a 5% increase, and then you'll continue to move up the scale. We get into payment for overtime. And then this was a concept that the county did years back, and it fell by the wayside. I don't know if it was punishment for a union coming in or not, but because there was, and back then we only had the one 12-hour shift, but the payment was 1.5 times for overtime shifts for 12 hours, and then 2.2 times for the 24 hours. And that way it created the ability for people to work and pick up the shifts at equal overtime rates. Is that correct, Clint? Did I explain that? Clint?
Yes.
Okay.
Somewhat.
Okay. If you want to expand on that, go ahead. If not, we can. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions after
This
they have
whole
time.
concept of Section 7 addresses an overwhelming issue that both sides recognize through the life of this contract, with adding considerably more 12-hour positions. The problem was that 24-hour employees aren't picking up overtime on a 12-hour truck because the amount of money that they're making is considerably less than the same person in the same classification with the same base annual salary is making for the same time. So in an effort to address the issues with getting people to fill positions and staffing shortages, we are trying to incentivize both sides of the coin for helping out the department. This goes back to conversations I've had previously, and I originally presented this to the county as an MOU almost 8 months ago now, as a means to help out, because there was an issue that was there. It's still continuing to happen, and we need to do something to fix it if we want to get people to fill these shifts, so that we're not mandating overtime, or we're having to put units down because we don't have staffing to keep them up.
Section 8 is new, compensation on approved leave. And that's bargaining unit members utilizing vacation time, personal holiday, compensatory or sick time. Those hours are calculated as hours worked for the purposes of overtime. Again, when they aren't counted, then it creates a disincentive for people to pick up additional shifts because it's paid at straight time. So if they were out for a day for a vacation or a personal holiday or a sick day, it kind of takes away on the opportunity and any incentive to work additional shifts that week. So if they were counted as hours worked, it's better for everyone. State of
So just to
emergency.
stop there, you're asking them, the county, to not pay in accordance with the FLSA, which only requires overtime on sweat time, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Can I say something, Chad?
Yeah, Clint, go ahead.
We're just asking the county to go back to the way they used to do it before they figured out that they didn't have to do it and then summarily punished all of the employees to save some money.
Well,
that's
I
exactly
don't
how
know
that's
that I would characterize it. I kind of have to say something here, Clint, that the characterization of punishing employees and bringing people in, I think, is hyperbole that we don't need to engage in here. Whatever those economic policies were that the county put into effect over the years that have been negotiated or replaced for these individuals or others is water under the bridge. I mean, I back and rehash that, but I don't think we need that hyperbole. Whatever was done was done. And in fact, frankly, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, there is no requirement to pay more than time and a half on sweat hours. It doesn't have to be paid on other times of non-work time. I just wanted to clarify that so everybody on my team understands that's what you're looking to do. Thanks.
I want to clarify something you said. So did you just say the FLSA says that sweat hours don't have to be paid at more than time and a half?
No, I didn't say that.
Okay, that's what it sounded like. That's why I'm asking you for clarification.
What I said was all the Fair Labor Standards Act requires is that you are paid time and a half, your regular rate of pay for all hours worked. So you do not have to, under the Fair Labor Standards Act, count vacation, personal, sick, anytime not worked in those computations.
Correct. Yeah, and I know that. I mean, I understand the FLSA.
Just pointing that out to my team. Thanks.
Okay. And then section 9, state of emergency pay. Again, looking for clarification on this. I know the county is, in light of Zooms, been able to kind of circumvent the intent on this, and that was additional pay for state of emergency. So we just wanted to clarify that if we are ordered in or held at work from leaving due to any declared state of emergency, or when a FEMA 214 form is required to be filled out, shall be paid at the rate as referenced in section 7. So my understanding on that, just for the background, was obviously in light of being able to do things via Zoom, that that preserved or enabled the county to continue most of its operations, but to do it via Zoom, it had no bearing on EMS workers and other essential personnel from being held or ordered in, but then not being compensated for it because it wasn't meeting the guidelines of how the county set it up. So again, if someone can sit home and do their job via Zoom, good for them, but unfortunately we can't treat patients via Zoom. So we're stuck and ordered in and held over. So we'd like to be compensated for that. So that is the language around that, Karen.
Could you go back up for a minute? I just want to make sure, because we're going to take some time and go over this, but I just,
What section?
is that, there we go. 3%. Scroll down a little. I'm just looking to see if you're, no. Are you looking, and again, since I don't have a copy, maybe I'll reserve my comment, my question until then, but I thought I saw in your proposal that in addition to all of these increases over the next 3 years or several years, you are looking for any, like a B2 clause for the, if other employees in the county get an increase, you'll get one in addition to all of this? Did I see that in there?
Yeah, and that was existing language.
Well,
that-
yeah, but it was existing language when they didn't have all these automatic increases in them. So do you have a step that goes with this that shows where the positions are slotted?
Yeah. Would you like to see that now?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. So here's the proposed step plan. And to keep it simple, or a simple explanation, Karen, is your current step one is $10.12. So what we did was to do a market adjustment to be more competitive. And again, taking in mind that over the next couple of years, minimum wage is going to start creeping up to this. We increased the EMT to $13.12. What we also did was took the maximum pay that was listed in the current contract and increased that by $3 as well. So we took everyone's starting rate and everyone's maximum rate and increased it by $3. Then we took the difference of the two and divided it up over the 9 steps, so that there's not really a percentage-based increase. It's just a breakdown of point A to point B, divvied up over 10 steps evenly. What I did was, you can see the 24, 48 EMT is 13.12. The annual is 43. And then if you break that down to the 12-hour annualized, it's 1908. And then I did that for each section. And then the only break from that is when we get down to specialty charge, because the language is 5% above. So the 1691, if you add 5% to that, you get the 1775, annualized 59, and then the 12-hour rate 25. So everything else is consistent, except again, here is based on the 5%. Any initial questions on that, Karen?
I don't have any right now to analyze how I saw that you have language on slotting them in, so we'll take a look at that. Does anybody on our team have any questions right now? I know we'll take a break and go through it, but I just want to check and see if there's anything obvious that you need to ask before we take a break. I don't think so. I think we're good.
Okay.
I have no questions, thanks.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay. What I'll do, Karen, is as soon as we jump off, I'll send those over to you, the language and the scale.
Okay, and what I'm going to send you, so that you, while we're doing this, and give us at least a half an hour or so, is I have for you the addendum that, or Article 27, the FTO language.
Okay.
And I'm sending it as both a PDF and a Word. I thought if we put it up on the screen, the PDF is easier. So I have both versions there for you to look at.
Okay.
We have also given you a proposal on the uniforms on 20, and I realize that you rejected our proposal. But what I asked the chief to do was to take a look at what a GO would look like if we moved the uniform apparel pieces to a GO. That's the other PDF here. So it's just a draft for your perusal. Okay.
And then just a point of clarification, just so we know, and we're giving it a fair assessment and consideration. When you make these references to GOs in the contract, are you amenable to locking it into that version for the life of the contract?
Well, I don't think that was my proposal, but I'm certain that my team would take a look at any problem we would make. That was not our proposal, but certainly, unless I see what you have in mind, I wouldn't reject it.
All right. No, I just was curious. I haven't had a chance to talk to my team about it, but again, I have certain contracts that we reference a company policy, as long as the that policy is maintained and referenced in the contract for the life of that cycle. So, all right, we'll hop over. I'll take a look at what you send over and we'll go from there.
Okay, great. Thanks. And we'll leave
Thank
and
you.
we'll give us about half an hour and I'll email you, Scott.
Okay,
Great. Thanks.
thank you.